The Justin Robert Young program brought to you as always by everybody who supports us at PayJuryDaily.com. I'm not even going to plug anything else. I just want to get into this show. PayJuryDaily.com. Let's stop talking about how we support the show. Start talking about how we do the damn thing. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Justin Robert Young program. My name is Justin Robert Young. We got a great show today. It is Conspiracy Week. Conspiracy Week. Yes. Talking about all your favorite conspiracies, whether you like conspiracies, whether you don't like conspiracies, whether you're fascinated by conspiracies. I have a theory. I got a conspiracy. Everybody kind of likes conspiracies because everybody's got some fundamental element of their truth that they would like to question. And whether or not it's wishful thinking or it's paranoia or it's something more dangerous, we all have that root, that little spark. And I'll tell you where mine came from. I only remembered this while I was doing the doc here today, and I decided to make it the first segment. This is the first conspiracy that I ever had, and it was kind of a weird one. In fact, I'm sure that there's probably some mental health professionals in the audience that will probably tell me that this is indicative of some kind of horrifying trauma or some ongoing disorder that I should seek help for. But this was a childhood conspiracy. I remember this as if it were yesterday. I had a childhood conspiracy that I was consistently and totally surrounded by demons. Could it be demons? Demons. And I mean everybody in my life. My friends, my family, my parents, my relatives, everybody. Everybody was a demon. Now, they were not there to torment me. They were not there to torture me, nor did they particularly care about what I did. They were there because this was the worst job in hell. Like, they got the ass end of the responsibility chart. They were, I don't know who they pissed off, whose cousin they fucked. Like, this was just, I was the end of the galaxy. Now, when I say demons, I mean demons. I remember thinking in my head that wherever I went was the room tone, right? And then whenever I walked out of the room, what would happen is, theatrically, and for those of you who are watching live here, I will do a recreation for you. Whenever I walked out of the room, it would turn red. And they would slowly, well, not slowly, like they would just, it would be like if, you know, a couple Disney people were you know, pretending to be Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, and then the kid walked out of the room, and they'd be like, "Oh, geez, did you go to Greg's party?" Yeah, I wasn't able to make it out there anyway. They would literally just talk about whatever they wanted because they weren't on duty, and they were very thrilled that this, the most boring job in the history of hell, was at least momentarily over. I don't know if I ever really got so far as to think of exactly how this existed, except, of course, I had to assume that hell existed and that there were demons and apparently there was some kind of hierarchy. It's so funny that I thought of that before I had any kind of terrible job. Like, I thought of that before I had any kind of idea what responsibility and what a chain of command was, what really punishment was on a professional scale. Although I guess I did know the punishment of being, an unruly child and told to go do something that I didn't like. And I don't really remember how this began. There was no clarion moment when I remember walking in and the lights were red. Although I guess now that I think back on it, I was a very theatrically minded child. Because I had very colorful and theatrical kind of fantasies, even if they were kind of depressing. I guess if I were to psychoanalyze myself, I'd say that it was just a manifestation of loneliness and lack of self-worth. That I felt like, even the most intimate of connections that I would have with my family were somehow fabricated or perverted, and that even though they were literal demons, they didn't even care enough to, torture me. But yeah, that was my conspiracy. That was my conspiracy. I don't really know when it ended. I think it probably, if I'm going to be honest, it probably just graduated into more of like a Truman Show paranoia. Like the idea that the world is fabricated and only I exist in it. That's like a real thing. Like that is something that if I were of poorer mental health, I assume that would be the psychosis that I would spin into. And then all the ancillary elements of, believing that there is a fabrication surrounding us and there is no such thing as honesty, right? It's all a game. And if it was all a game, well, imagine how you'd react to this. This one comes to us from over in Europe. The headline from The Cut. Oops, airplane lands in completely wrong country. A British Airways flight from London to Germany took off in the wrong direction and landed somewhere in Scotland. In a truly poetic turn of events, as no one was harmed, the British Airways flight taking off from London City Airport was supposed to be headed to Dusseldorf, Germany. At least that was what the passengers on board thought was happening. Instead, the plane ended up taking off in the opposite direction and landing in Edinburgh, 525 miles away from the intended destination, USA Today reports. According to the airline, the incorrect flight plan was planned by WDL Aviation, which operated the flight on behalf of British Airways. Thus, the pilots, cabin crew, and the air traffic controllers. Because that was my biggest question when I saw this headline, was how on earth can this happen? Like they've often said, well, on every flight, mostly every flight, there's a moment when the flight attendant says, does everybody expect to be going to destination? And it's kind of weird because you'd have to really, really, really try hard to get onto a plane when you didn't have the correct ticket for said plane. It's not even like people are looking at things anymore with their eyes. You scan the barcode and it goes to a system somewhere else. Although I guess nobody asked this on this flight. That would have actually saved some hassle if all of a sudden they were like, is everybody ready to go to Edinburgh, Scotland? And they were like, 9! In unison. Everybody on the British Airways flight screamed 9. Then you would know that this was not an appropriate thing to do. We might need to go ahead and take a look. But apparently this was planned in a way that nobody but the passengers knew that they were not supposed to be going to Scotland. Passenger Zofia Zabato told CNN that she noticed something was wrong when she saw mountains instead of the normal German industrial landscape upon landing. Then my colleague sitting across the aisle from me told me to check Google Maps. It showed us being around Carlisle. The passenger explained that confusion followed. It wasn't until the flight attendants asked for a show of hand of passengers who thought they were traveling to Dusseldorf that they realized every single passenger was now in the wrong place. Most of us found the situation quite funny. People were on the phone trying to convince everybody that they'd arrived in the wrong city. The airline later apologized to the passengers. I find that to be bullshit. There is no way, and I mean 0% chance that in any way, if a plane goes to a totally wrong city, that people are happy on that airplane. There's no way. Do you know how pissed off people get if they're 5 minutes late? If they're 10 minutes late? If they're a half hour, an hour late landing? Absolutely not. There's no way that these people were anything other than absolutely furious. Absolutely insane. Well, I got a conspiracy. This is a fake story. I don't know why, man. They're trying to disappear this whole goddamn plane full of Dusseldorf passengers. And you know who I'm on to the most? Zofia Zabado. Zabo? Zofia, it's Z-S-O with an N-Y over it. F-I-A. I guess that's Sophia. Zabo. S-Z-A-B-O-N-Y. Is that Hungarian? Man, what it sounds like is a shill for British Airways trying to pass off this nonsense like you're not trying to disappear people. Who didn't make it to Dusseldorf? It's going to be my spy novel. And I'm going to debut it. Well, right after I read this. Email. You can go ahead and email me, jurydaily@gmail.com. Again, jurydaily@gmail.com. Taking your Conspiracy Week emails. Oh, also, thank you to another J. Martin for the news that you could use. Tim writes, years ago, I used to read one of the less rabid and occasionally skeptical Usenet UFO groups. As well as educating me about the big UFO stories, there were a lot of conspiracy theories being bandied about. A common theory was that there was an ongoing and centuries-old war for global supremacy between the British royal family and the Roman Catholic Church. There was only one post dealing in an offshoot of this theory, which said that the world was run by the Royal United Services Institute, and that organization reported to Queen Elizabeth's husband, Prince Philip, who was the conspirator-in-chief. One reply to the post was from a man who claimed to work for the Royal United Services Institute, who said, quote, I had no idea we had so much power. I always smile on the fairly frequent occasions that news programs in the UK invite analysts and researchers from the Royal United Services Institute to give opinions on world events. Also, the thought always to the back of my mind is, assuming that he wasn't a fake, what was a guy from the Royal United Services Institute doing in a UFO news group? I'll tell you what he was doing. Fucking around and learning about UFOs. It would shock you how many people with fairly important jobs are just bumming around doing dumb shit on the internet. Remember, no one on the internet knows you're a dog who works for the Royal United Services Institute. Trench Reynolds writes, big shout out to Trench. Trench has always got his shit together. He also has a podcast. Go listen to Trench Reynolds' podcast. He's a good man. I recently found out about the personal pan pizza of conspiracy theories called gang stalking, where individuals believe they're being targeted by the government who use several different individuals to harass the target. While it's closer to a delusion than a conspiracy, thanks to the internet, we now have groups of people who think that they are victims of gang stalking congregating on social media, confirming each other's paranoid fantasies. So I read this, the Trench linked this story, which was a New York Times story, and essentially the idea is you believe that many people you see on the street are kind of like in a spy movie spying on you, but they are not there to collect intelligence, nor are they like My Friendly Family demons who are just kind of there being bored. These people are here to terrorize you. They bump into you on the street. They often whisper in your ear, now you know how it works. But they believe that they are being terrorized by some kind of government agency. That's a pretty good one. Send me your conspiracies. We are reading them all this week. JuRyDaily@gmail.com. One more email. Jacob writes, I will listen to a couple of... I mentioned somebody who was listening to old episodes of the podcast, and I was wondering why you would listen to old episodes of a podcast that's fairly stuck in time, fairly dated. Jacob wrote, I will listen to a couple of old episodes of your podcast, including PX3, NSFW, Night Attack from time to time. Why? I have really bad ADD. Even with my medication, it's hard to stay focused / not bounce around from thing to thing. Having something on in the background, podcast, talk radio, stand-up comedy, generally helps me, especially when it's quiet and I have work to do. I own a small business, a local game store, and get in around 9 a.m., but I don't open until 3 p.m., so it's generally quiet. If it helps, I'm 28, white, in South Carolina, and terrified to do my taxes on Wednesday. I actually have to rush off the internet as soon as I'm done recording this because I have to have a call with my tax person. And I'll tell you what, Jacob, I'm shitting a brick. Again, JuRyDaily@gmail.com. JuRyDaily@gmail.com. I want to thank our producers, Bill, Dustin, BioCow, Robert H., Brian C., M., Trey the Melodica Man, Adam, Middle-Aged Mike, and Harry Lee Smith. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat is @JustinRYoung. You can join our Discord, bit.ly/JuRyDiscord. Again, thanks to another Jay Martin for giving us our stories. I am taking the JuRy stories from the JuRy Stories channel. So if you find something cool, get on into our Discord, throw it in there. That's where I'm taking them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. It's your old boy, Justin Robert Young, wishing you to please give a round of applause to Mr. Wacky, but more importantly, please don't.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.